You could feel the anger tonight at a Board of Trustees meeting in Thornton Township. The board and citizens looking for accountability to their finances, while the township supervisor...
Good evening. An illegal appointment. That's what the trustees I talked to are calling this. They say the news took them by surprise, and now they're talking to legal counsel to figure out their next step.
Y'all! Our girl Tiffany has always known how to grab the spotlight, but this time she might be in way over her head. Word on the street is that she's secretly cutting a deal with the FBI to save herself from a one-way trip to the slammer. Can you believe it? But here's the real kicker. It's not just Henyard who's in hot water. This whole mess is like a tangled web of corruption, mismanagement, and betrayal. And guess what? Henyard might be ready to take everyone down with her. Talk about drama. So how did we get here? Let me tell you, it's been a wild ride with Henyard at the helm of Dolton, Illinois. This small village somehow found itself at the center of a storm that's got everyone talking. Just a few months ago, Henyard was riding high, untouchable in her role as both mayor of Dolton and supervisor of Thornton Township. She built this image of herself as a super mayor who was going to clean up the village. But honey, it looks like the only thing she was cleaning up was the village's bank account.
For a year now, we've been reporting on questionable spending by a South suburban politician named Tiffany Henyard. But we only knew half the story.
Now, besties, here's where things get really juicy. Sources close to the situation are whispering that Henyard's been quietly negotiating with the feds, trying to strike a deal to avoid being dragged into court. And get this, she might just be ready to sell out her allies. Can you believe it? The very people who helped her build her empire, who stood by her side and backed her every move, might be thrown under the bus faster than you can say, corruption scandal. Henyard's legal team, two high-powered criminal defense attorneys who've represented some big names, are working overtime to cut her the best deal possible. But what does that mean for her inner circle? I'll tell you what it means. They're all looking over their shoulders, wondering if they're next on the chopping block.
Well, Mr. Lacey is absolutely not guilty of all 9 counts. I believe he's cooperating. And if you cooperate, you have to admit your guilt first.
Let's talk about some of the key players in this messy situation. First up, we've got Keith Freeman. This guy was once Henyard's closest ally, her right-hand man in Dolton, and her trusted advisor in Thornton Township. Together, they ran the village with an iron grip. Freeman was the former village administrator and the registered agent of Henyard's controversial charity. He was instrumental in helping Henyard maintain control over Dolton's finances. But honey, that all came crashing down.
One way that the government always does it is to go and investigate people around her, and that's what they're doing.
Freeman got hit with federal charges for bankruptcy fraud. And just like that, their partnership soured faster than milk left out in the sun. Henyard reportedly tried to cut him loose, even attempting to fire him at a village board meeting. But the trustees weren't having it. Now, rumor has it that Freeman might be cooperating with investigators. If that's true, it could spell disaster for Henyard and her entire operation.
You know, wrong is wrong, and there's a time to hold people responsible and accountable for their actions.
Next up on our list of Henyard's fallen allies is L. Lacey, the former deputy police chief of Dolton. This guy was no stranger to controversy. He was charged with bankruptcy fraud, just like Freeman, but that didn't stop Henyard from reappointing him to lead the police department. Talk about loyalty. But now, Lacey's caught in the crosshairs of the federal investigation too. Get this, Lacey's name has been linked to some seriously questionable overtime payouts. Reports show he raked in over $200,000 in overtime pay, despite not being eligible for that money. The timing of these payouts has raised more eyebrows than a Botox clinic. Many are wondering if they were part of a larger scheme orchestrated by Henyard. But now that Lacey's facing serious legal trouble, he might be looking to strike a deal of his own. It's like a game of musical chairs, but with prison sentences. Now, let's talk about Carmen Carlisle, Henyard's former assistant turned trustee. She was once considered a loyal supporter of the super mayor, but oh, how the tables have turned. As the scandal unfolded, Carlisle turned on Henyard faster than a reality TV show villain. She's accusing Henyard of unethical behavior and predatory practices, claiming that Henyard used her position to manipulate employees and vendors, funneling taxpayer money into her personal projects and luxury expenses. Carlisle didn't just make vague accusations, besties. She laid out all the juicy details about how Henyard's administration spent exorbitant amounts of money on first-class flights, five-star hotels, and high-end dining, all on the taxpayer's dime. One trip to Austin, Texas reportedly cost the village over $20,000, with Henyard and her entourage racking up bills at luxury hotels and steakhouse dinners. And let's not forget the $33,000 Henyard spent in a single day on Amazon purchases. I mean, what was she buying? A solid gold toilet?
Who would make a one day purchase of over $40,000 to Amazon? And the main thing is, what is it?
Henyard's spending habits have been under the microscope for months, with village trustees repeatedly calling for transparency. The village's general fund balance went from a surplus of over $5 million in 2022 to a deficit of nearly $4 million by 2024. That's a financial collapse so jaw-dropping, it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was brought in to investigate Henyard's financial dealings, and what she found was shocking. Police costs had skyrocketed during Henyard's time in office, with some officers making more in overtime than their base salaries. One officer made over $100,000 in overtime pay in a single fiscal year, more than double his salary. It's like Henyard was running Dolton like her personal ATM.
We needed those officers to be on the street fighting crime. And instead, we have several officers that are riding around protecting.
But here's where it gets really interesting, besties. As the feds dig deeper into Henyard's finances, some are wondering if this whole mess is going to take down more than just the mayor. With so many of her allies already facing legal trouble, it's becoming clear that this isn't just about one person. This is about a network of individuals who've worked together to enrich themselves at the expense of the village. And now, Henyard is reportedly ready to point the finger at each and every one of them if it means she can walk away without serving time. Talk about throwing your friends under the bus. In recent weeks, the tension between Henyard and the village board has reached a boiling point. At a board meeting, village trustees voted to block Henyard from using credit cards for unapproved purchases and placed restrictions on how much money can be spent on special events. These moves are seen as direct attempts to curb Henyard's influence and prevent her from continuing her lavish spending spree. But Henyard isn't backing down. She's vetoed multiple board decisions and continues to push forward with her own agenda, even as the investigation tightens around her like a noose.
I am about to address some things as the supervisor. There will be no comments, there will be anything, it'll just be me addressing you guys to tell you what's going on.
And what about those who once supported her, but are now speaking out against her? Thornton Township trustee Chris Gonzalez, who once stood by Henyard's side, has been vocal about his disapproval of her spending. He's called her out for approving events that weren't even in the township's budget, like the infamous Taste of Thornton Township event. Henyard shelled out $85,000 for a mini-concert featuring Airburner, K. Michelle, and rapper Jay Holiday. The event was a total flop, with barely anyone showing up, but Henyard still paid the performers top dollar for their 30-minute sets. Talk about flushing money down the drain.
By the Lansing Journal, trustee Chris Gonzalez said,
"Or the administration can adhere to some financial limits. We're not looking to necessarily..."
As the rumors of Henyard's potential deal with the FBI swirl, the question on everyone's mind is, who's going to take the fall with her? If she does decide to sell out her allies, it could mean the end of their careers and possibly their freedom. Will Freeman, Lacey, and Carlisle be dragged down with her, or will they too cut their own deals to avoid prison time? The clock is ticking, and as more details emerge about Henyard's secret negotiations, it's clear that this story is far from over. But let's take a step back and look at how Tiffany Henyard ended up in this mess in the first place. Her downfall didn't happen overnight, though it sure feels like it's spiraling out of control now. Henyard's time in office has been marked by scandal after scandal, but nothing compares to the level of corruption and chaos she unleashed on the village of Dolton. Her so-called super mayor image was built on promises of cleaning up the town. Yet it didn't take long before people started to realize that Henyard wasn't cleaning up the village. She was cleaning out the village's bank accounts. Residents who once believed in her vision of a better Dolton are now watching their town crumble, both financially and morally. It's no wonder Henyard has earned herself the nickname Dolton Dictator.
That's right, John and Terrence. Tonight's meeting had a much different tone than what we've experienced previously at Dolton City Council meetings. Now, the room was full of Henyard supporters, and they wanted me to be sure to tell you that they applauded for her several times as she talked about the township being in a great place financially. Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard.
Let's start with the basics. Misuse of funds. This is where Henyard's troubles began to snowball. She wasn't just careless with Dolton's finances, she was reckless. From the moment she took office, she treated the village's budget like her personal credit card, shelling out thousands of dollars on lavish trips, high-end restaurants, and luxury hotels. Remember that trip to Austin, Texas? It wasn't just a quick getaway. Henyard and her entourage spent more than $20,000 on a 5-day stay, with over $11,000 spent at the upscale Fairmont Austin Hotel. And that's just one trip. Similar indulgences were reported on other taxpayer-funded excursions to New York, Atlanta, and Portland.
This administration is shameful. Y'all are a disgrace.
We're watching the fall of this administration.
And it wasn't just the travel besties. There was the $33,000 she blew on Amazon in a single day. Let that sink in for a second. $33,000 on Amazon. And to make matters worse, there are no clear records explaining what that money was spent on. It's like she was playing supermarket sweep with the village's credit card.
Staffers also distributed a breakdown of the township's finances from 2017 to current, where Henyard's team says years ago they were in a deficit of more than $2 million. And now, today, under her administration, her team says there's a surplus of more than $6 million.
What's even more alarming is how Henyard's administration handled overtime pay for the police department. Under her watch, 2 officers were making more in overtime than their base salaries, with one officer receiving over $100,000 in overtime pay alone. And remember, this is a village with a population of just over 20,000 people. What could possibly justify this kind of spending?
They'll turn up more and more information. They'll turn up more leads. They may turn up more witnesses. They may find a cooperator. They may find an informant, all which will benefit the investigation tremendously.
But based on what we know now, if you're Tiffany Henyard, how are you feeling?
I would be nervous.
But the financial mismanagement is only part of the story. Henyard's behavior throughout her time in office has been nothing short of outrageous. From the very beginning, it became clear that she wasn't playing by the rules. In fact, she was making her own. Henyard has been accused of using her power to intimidate and retaliate against her opponents, silencing critics, and consolidating control over Dolton and Thornton Township.
I do not handle anything as relates to with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting about, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
You didn't go to Las Vegas? What is that?
No comment.
One of the most notorious examples of her bullying tactics was when she ordered her personal police detail to follow residents who dared to speak out against her. This personal security force, funded by the very taxpayers she was bleeding dry, became an extension of her power. The former Dolton police chief, Robert Collins, even spoke out about how Henyard's constant demand for a large security detail crippled the department's ability to fight crime. Instead of having officers on the streets, they were following Henyard around, acting as her personal bodyguards.
Gardner says he's been harassed and his business raided and shut down by Dolton police. He believes because he refused to make a donation to a civic event sponsored by Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard.
And I talked to a couple of agents and I explained them what was going on. I gave them all my paperwork.
Henyard's heavy-handed approach didn't stop there. She also found ways to retaliate against her political enemies. Take the case of Valeria Stubbs, a former trustee and vocal critic of Henyard. Stubbs' home was shot up in the middle of the night, and though no one was harmed, Stubbs has repeatedly suggested that the attack was an act of intimidation orchestrated by Henyard. While there's no concrete evidence linking Henyard to the shooting, the incident certainly adds to the growing list of allegations against the mayor.
Been reporting for nearly 2 years on allegations of corruption surrounding Henyard in her capacity as Dolton mayor and Thornton Township supervisor. And now we've learned from multiple sources that federal agents are in fact interviewing witnesses as part of a possible investigation that may or may not result in charges.
Now, with the FBI breathing down her neck, Henyard's empire is crumbling. The federal subpoenas served to Dolton and Thornton Township are a clear indication that the feds aren't just sniffing around, they're closing in. These subpoenas are reportedly seeking records on everything from the village's finances to Henyard's political fund and even her cancer charity, which, by the way, has come under scrutiny for its own shady dealings.
The offer to our seniors, and they told us, your card doesn't work.
And I stand in the fight because I want the boys and girls of the next generation to see what it looks like to come out of controversy and to come out of all the hatred unscathed. At the end of the day, God gives the test to his strongest soldiers.
Oh yes, the Tiffany Henyard Cares Foundation. This charity was supposed to be a heartfelt effort aimed at helping cancer patients. But like everything else tied to Henyard, it's shrouded in controversy. Not only has the foundation failed to file the required financial disclosures with the state, but it also received a $10,000 donation from Thornton Township on the very day it was chartered. Talk about suspicious timing.
All I can tell you is that I'm not the one on anything. That's the only thing I can tell you right now. So I'm just trying to answer to the.
So you're saying there's a foundation that's not registered, but it has nothing to do with you?
Correct. That's true.
Okay.
That's
so you're not aware of any of the work that they've done, money that they've raised, anything along those lines?
Correct.
As Henyard's legal troubles continue to mount, it's becoming increasingly clear that her time is running out. The rumors of her deal with the FBI seem more plausible with each passing day, especially considering how much she stands to lose if convicted of the charges she's facing. Henyard could be looking at serious prison time, which is why many believe she's ready to cut her losses and turn on her allies.
Very appreciative to receive the information today. We have the best mayor ever. I've been here since 1993, and she's the best we ever had.
You know, you're doing a lot of programs, good programs for the, the senior citizens, and you're doing a lot of programs for, people who are on a fixed budget. But what about the people, the blue-collar people who are still carrying this, this time?
There's already speculation that Keith Freeman, her former right-hand man, has been cooperating with the feds for months. If that's true, Henyard might not have as much leverage as she thinks. Freeman's involvement in the village's financial mismanagement has been well documented, but he's not the only one in Henyard's circle who's in trouble.
Y'all thought that I was young, dumb, didn't know nothing, was gonna let y'all come and manipulate me. I didn't do any of that. So because I didn't do any of that, you guys started this whole smear campaign.
As the investigation unfolds, it's clear that this isn't just about Tiffany Henyard anymore. It's about a web of corruption that has engulfed an entire village, leaving its residents bankrupt and disillusioned. The people of Dolton trusted Henyard to lead them, but instead, she led them into financial ruin.
We reached out to the FBI, which said it is policy for the agency not to comment on the nature, existence, or non-existence of any investigation that may be occurring. A public relations firm responded on behalf of the mayor, saying neither Henyard or the village of Dolton have received any subpoenas or been contacted by the FBI or any other law enforcement agency.
Now, as the FBI closes in, the question remains: how many more secrets will come to light before this saga is over? And while the rumors of Henyard's secret deal continue to swirl, there's one thing we know for sure. This isn't the last we've heard of Dolton's super mayor. Whether she cuts a deal or goes down fighting, one thing is certain: Tiffany Henyard's reign is coming to an end, and she won't be walking away unscathed. The only question left is, who will be the next to fall? That's all for now, besties. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this ongoing saga, and let me know in the comments what you think about this whole mess. Is Henyard going down, or will she somehow wriggle her way out of this one? Until next time, keep sipping that tea and stay fabulous. Goodbye. Goodbye.